I was a pretty voracious reader when I was little, and my parents generally let me read whatever I wanted, but when it came to Diary of a Wimpy Kid, there was some reluctance. I think they were concerned that if I got used to reading books like this, I would never want to read anything more complex or difficult, which is a valid concern, but not a very long-lived one, because in 2nd grade, I was allowed to make a purchase from the Scholastic Book Fair. And of course, I chose Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I loved this book immediately. I tore through it in like a day, and I reread it probably 10 times over the next couple years. And my parents, as they were known to do once they saw how much I liked something, grew soft and permissive. They bought me the 2nd one, the 3rd one, the 4th one, the do-it-yourself book. Well, okay, I'm pretty sure I bought the do-it-yourself book. Jeff Kinney, the author of these books, was responsible for creating Funbrain Arcade, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and Poptropica. This man had legal title to my brain from the ages of 5 to 13. But no successful children's book goes unadapted. And in 2010, the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie franchise had begun. I saw this movie for the first time on a plane, and I threw up in the middle of watching it. Was that just my aversion to flying, or was that a statement about the quality of the film? Let's find out. Okay, so despite the joke about throwing up in the middle of this movie, I loved this movie when I was a kid. I don't think I was watching it super critically. I think I just thought it was cool that a book that I used to really like was all of a sudden a movie. A whole new way to enjoy the same thing. Having now rewatched the movie, it's not good, but there are a few bits that made me chuckle. My favorite bit in this movie is the "It's great to be me" PSA, where the message is like, just be yourself and everyone will love you.
Why doesn't anybody like me?
Maybe because they don't know how awesome you really are.
Brock Brannigan, P.I.? What are you doing here?
They're like, just tap into those things about you that make you special. But this guy's thing that makes him special is that he can breakdance, and everyone is very impressed.
Wicked, you should sit with us at lunch, friend.
This movie doesn't feel like a very good adaptation of the book, and it's entirely because these characters and stories are immediately changed when they are translated into the medium of cinema. The first thing that becomes clear when you open this book is that all these characters are caricatures. Even Greg is a caricature in the book, because these are all people as they exist in the mind of a middle schooler. So when you make them real people, you add all these facets of character that make everything less funny. Because, and I can't stress this enough, Greg is an asshole. And that's not a critique. All middle schoolers are assholes. But when you read a book from his perspective, with drawings from his perspective, he's kind of the sun that everything revolves around, so you don't really care. The best example I can give here is this bit where he joins the school's production of The Wizard of Oz and ruins the whole show by throwing apples at Patty Farrell. In the movie, there's like this ongoing feud between the two of them, and it goes all the way back to preschool. She beats him up in wrestling, and even when he throws apples at her, she like catches them and starts throwing them back, and she like tackles him and shit. And it's like, damn, this is getting kind of heavy. I feel like an adult needs to intervene here. And that was never a thought that crossed my mind when I read the books, because Patty Farrell looks like this. And by making her look like the caricature of the dorkiest girl you knew in middle school, it's just funny somehow. There's no camera providing any objectivity to the situation. Fregley is another perfect example of this. In the book, Fregley is feral. Fregley is terrifying. He's not a child so much as a typhoon of chaos. In the movie, I think this child is being neglected. He gets sent home from school every week for hygiene issues. Is he okay? How's his home life? Where is his adult? Live action just adds this whole psychological layer that completely kills a lot of bits that are taken pretty verbatim from the book. They also make this somewhat bewildering decision to add an original character named Angie, like a manic pixie dream girl who's constantly expositing about how different she is from all the other girls. Did you hire Chloe Moretz before realizing there aren't really a lot of female characters in the first book? Greg encounters her for the first time while he's hiding under the bleachers in gym class, and she's like also hanging out down there just reading literature. Okay, but wait, they're 6th graders. She's a 7th grader. So this isn't even her gym class. She cuts class to come read literature under the bleachers. You know, there are classes where they'll let you read, right? I think it would be really funny if she was skipping like English class. I'm not like the other girls. I just can't focus when I'm reading in a chair. I gotta be reading under a chair. It was very funny to get to the credits and they do a thing where everybody gets their book character replaced by the live action photo. Ah, of course. This beloved character, who appears to have been drawn as Greg Heffley with hair that everyone remembers for her relevance to the goofs and gags of the plot. The movie ultimately ends up feeling a lot more generic than the book, and I think it's because it tries to throw in a high school musical-esque message about how we gotta stop trying to be popular. Just be who you are and everything will work out okay. And like, okay, I guess I can't fault them for throwing a little bit of positivity into a kid's movie, but the books frequently do not end that way. More often than not, Greg learns nothing from his experiences. He exhibits no character growth, and most of the time things usually work out because of the humorous collision of a few storylines rather than any kind of lesson that helped him achieve the outcome. I feel like the book kind of subverts that trope of kids media, especially when Greg has a heart-to-heart with his mom and she encourages him to do the right thing, which he interprets as letting Rowley take the blame for his antics, and then he comes home and she's like, "Did you do the right thing?" And he's like, "Yeah!" And they go out for ice cream to celebrate his correct decision. It's interesting, it's almost the first indication that maybe they were going to run into some issues translating this material from book to movie, because I think that there is kind of an expectation of kids' movies to provide that layer of positivity that's not always so rigorously enforced in kids' literature. This is not the only attempt to adapt the first book into a movie. There is also the Disney Plus 2021 animated version of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. If you're like me, your first thought was, okay, animation should actually be a better medium of adapting these stories. You can probably capture a little bit more of the style and the eccentricity of the books in a non-live action format. Unfortunately, this movie is incredibly boring. This movie did not elicit one single laugh from me, not even a nasal exhale. I sat there with a perfectly neutral expression the entire time. It's rare that you find a movie so devoid of any kind of human emotion. These characters are fucking terrifying. Rowley is a cylinder with 2 teeth. You can count each and every single one of the dad's hairs. They're hot dog width, and they all have spaces between them. They kind of look like cornrows. All of them are a very scary flesh tone, but Rodrick is like dirty? Why is he a different color than the rest of them? And they gave Manny forward-facing eyes, which means he is a predator. The mom's mic quality is like weirdly different when they get back from trick-or-treating.
We were worried sick about you two. Where were you boys?
Was this a COVID production? Because it sounds like she's calling in over the Xbox 360 headset right now. I do like how many little Easter eggs and references to the book are kind of sprinkled all over this movie. Net critters, Tower of Druids. Me, an intellectual, I understand these things.
Get out of here, you punks!
They drove their car onto the basketball court. That's all you got? The animated movie makes Chirag 100% less Indian. Admittedly, his Indian slider was all the way at a 10 in the live action one.
Good God, man! You almost got the cheese touch.
But they brought him down to a straight up 0.
You want to see my room?
Yeah.
This movie is only an hour long, so they really only get around to 3 bits. Halloween, Rowley breaks his hand, and the cheese touch. They briefly touch on Zooey Mama, because of course, but they really zipped through that one too. For a movie this bland, I didn't really want it to be longer, but everything felt so rushed for a movie that simultaneously feels like nothing is happening. I feel like a lot of times what makes jokes funny in the books is the way that they are able to capture just a moment in time. Like in the middle of something happening, and maybe just someone's facial expression or the way something is moving can be part of the joke. But in a movie, there have to be scenes with full conversations of dialogue that painfully crawl from one botched attempt to recreate a gag to another. But who knows? Maybe they get better. Rodrick rules. Certainly, I think one of the funnier books. This movie is critically acclaimed on Letterboxd, and I cannot figure out why. Is it just that we think Devin Bostic is hot? Because honestly, from a quality perspective, it's about the same as the first one. I did laugh at this part where Patty Farrell sings Memory at the talent show, and at first Rodrick is unimpressed, but then she gets to the final chorus and he's like fighting back tears. Chirag goes back to India for like 2 minutes of this movie, I guess so that he can come back so they can start Invisible Chirag.
You know what? I liked Chirag a whole lot better when he was in India.
The animated version of this movie is, for some reason, almost a direct adaptation of the live action one. Like it does the big party and the closet door the same exact way. It also doesn't do mom bucks nearly as funny as the book. Neither of the movies managed to get mom bucks right. Because neither adaptation includes the funniest detail, which is that mom bucks gets shut down when Rodrick tries to cash in $100,000 to buy a used motorcycle. The live action one also spends a lot of time focusing on Greg's relationship with Holly Hills, which is good and I am interested in. So at least the animated one doesn't bother with that. But this movie feels like they got the rights to Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but still hired someone to make a mockbuster of it. The voice acting is incredible.
You locked me in the basement.
Yeah, like, as a joke.
Which brings us along to Diary of a Wimpy Kid Christmas Cabin Fever, or Diary of a Wimpy Kid Christmas Cabin Fever. Someone better call the doctor, because I've got Diary of a Wimpy Kid Christmas Cabin Fever. Let's watch the movie. So this one's an adaptation of the 6th Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, Cabin Fever, which is one of my favorite ones in the whole series. The plot of this book is that Greg and Rowley are trying to advertise one of their usual business hijinks, and they accidentally graffiti the wall of the school. And so they run away, and now they're like wanted criminals, and they have to deal with all that. The movie tries to kind of recreate this subplot, but they do it by making them responsible for breaking the snowplow driver's snowplow.
Oh, baby. Oh, you have got to be kidding me.
This snowplow lady looks like the Snapchat hot dog. I like that after they do this, the police put up wanted posters. Have you ever seen wanted posters in the suburbs? Do they live in the Wild West? Are bounty hunters gonna come drag Greg and Rowley to the gallows for their appointment with the hangman's noose? This movie ends in a similar way to the book, where for different reasons, Greg has to get into this like church donation bin, so he has to shovel this entire parking lot to get access to it. He does this whole parking lot by hand, but like, where does he put the snow? Where is it all? Rowley inexplicably has the most hauntingly angelic voice I've ever heard. The movie does a somewhat decent job at adapting the power outage subplot where the Heffleys are all stuck in their house and they have to try to survive because Manny is actively trying to kill them. But honestly, they kind of botched one of my favorite books in the series. How are you not going to have a Net Critters subplot? How are you not going to have anything about the Holiday Bazaar and the Drummies? In the book, Greg always looks forward to the Holiday Bazaar because it's the only place that he can get these really good chicken drumsticks called Drummies, but he feels really stupid ordering them with that name. It just reminded me of this time when my wife and I went to Red Robin, and she always gets chicken tenders no matter where we go. At Red Robin, the chicken tenders are called the Clucks and Fries, which is a fucking humiliating thing to order at a restaurant. So when the waitress came over to take our order, she was like, I'll have the chicken tenders. And the waitress was like, you mean the Clucks and Fries? I just thought that was funny. But anyways, they don't even try to adapt the Drummies subplot, where he finds them in the freezer aisle and then he like buys their entire stock. The way that they do the whole like, oh, they're in trouble with the police thing, like it's not nearly as funny, because in the book, they're trying to put posters up for their own Holiday Bazaar where they're going to sell Drummies, but then because they are using neon green poster board in the rain, it like bleeds into the wall of the school and it makes these giant blotches. Then they run away and the police are trying to find whoever graffitied the school. But then Rowley submits an anonymous tip that says, me and Greg Heffley vandalized the school. Also, they completely skip over the funniest subplot in this book, which is Alfredo. Before Manny is born, Greg's mom gets him a baby doll named Alfredo to sort of get him practice at taking care of a child, but he gets really attached to it, and then one day it just vanishes because Greg's dad is going to donate it to Goodwill. But Greg doesn't want them to think that he lost the child and can't take care of a baby brother, so instead he just gets a grapefruit and draws a face on it and pretends that that's Alfredo. But then he gets attached to the grapefruit, and then the grapefruit starts rotting and he is forced to throw his beloved baby boy in the trash. And then later in the book, when they're cleaning out the basement, he finds the decrepit and deformed Alfredo, and it haunts him for the rest of the book. Not even going to try to adapt that? Come on, guys. What are we doing here? The final animated movie in the series is an adaptation of The Last Straw, which is my actual favorite book in the entire series. In the book, Greg is trying to avoid getting sent to military school by his dad because he's kind of a fuck up and his dad thinks it'll make him more manly. And in the book, it's like, okay, yeah, he's like, not very good at sports and he doesn't get very good grades. In the movie, Greg doesn't know how to use a key.
A key? What am I supposed to do with that? Turn already! Come on!
I'm kind of on Frank's side here. I think drastic measures do need to be taken because your 12-year-old son doesn't know how to use a key. And Greg's mom is like kind of okay, just like, whatever. Like, so he doesn't know how to use a key. Like, what's the big deal? And Greg is like, yeah, you never taught me how to do it. And it's like, I didn't think that was something that needed to be specifically taught. I think you might be an idiot. Not only is Greg incapable of using simple machines, he keeps causing Final Destination chaos wherever he goes. Where like, he keeps setting off Rube Goldberg machines that like destroy entire buildings. I hate to say it, I'm kind of on the dad's side here. I think some kind of military intervention is needed.
Whoa! Hey, watch it, Roadhog!
No, that's Junkrat, you idiot.
Hold on!
drive much?
How are you gonna fuck up VIP lawn service? That's the one that lives forever up here. Beefcake snow removal. Yeah, okay. SMH my damn head. Okay. It is kind of funny how Lenwood moves. In the book, Lenwood Heath is like a former juvenile delinquent who gets sent to military school, and now he's like straightened out his life, and that makes Greg's dad think that this is a good idea. In the movie, he's like a ninja. Okay, it is kind of funny that the gym teacher now only speaks in grunts. And reads Flat Earther Weekly. The movie is actually decently heartfelt. Like, as far as kids' movies go, it's pretty feel-good, even if it's not particularly funny. I liked the father-son story between Greg and his dad, especially because the dad has kind of been a total non-entity in the rest of these movies. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. At the end of the book, it's not heartfelt father-son bonding that prevents Greg from being sent away to Spag Union. It's the trademark crashing together of all the different bits. The Heffleys are forced to go to this birthday party where the Snella family forces all the neighborhood adults to make fools of themselves on camera, ostensibly to make the baby laugh, but in reality so that they can win America's Funniest Home Videos. And right as Greg's dad is about to have to take his turn, Manny unwraps one of the kids' presents and finds a blanket which he thinks is Tingy, his old baby blanket that got thrown out by Greg's dad earlier in the book because it was 3 pieces of string held together by boogers. So Greg tries to get it away from him, but Manny throws it into a tree, and while Greg is climbing to get it, his pants fall down and he's wearing his Wonder Woman underoos from earlier in the book, which he's only wearing because he's been refusing to do his laundry the entire book. And it all gets caught on camera, and Greg's dad thinks that Greg did it to get him off the hook, so now he doesn't have to go to Spag Union. You see what I'm saying? There are frequently happy endings to these books, but it's never because the characters exhibited moral growth. So when you write a movie this sappy and generic, it just doesn't really feel like a Diary of a Wimpy Kid adaptation. They also just didn't adapt a bunch of my favorite bits from this book. Ploopy, the snack thief, jumping in and out of the hole, which then leads them into the time capsule bit. This book is kind of a goldmine. The animated version is not the only movie that tries to adapt The Last Straw. Dog Days, the third live-action movie, tries to adapt both the third and fourth books in the series. The plot similarly revolves around Greg's ineptitude at literally everything, so his dad is considering sending him to military school. It was kind of funny. The dad is trying to, get him out of the house and get him more involved in manly activities, so he takes him to a Civil War reenactment, but Greg's ineptitude causes the Union to lose the Civil War.
The reasons we win this battle is we hold the element of surprise. No, we need the element of surprise! That kid's ruined everything! Let's go!
The dad is a lot more manic in this one. Like, his eyes are always bolted open. There's also weirdly a lot of ad-libbing in this movie.
Ha! Guess who's the laugher now? Me! I'm the laugher! I'm the laughingest laugher that ever laughed! Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! Funny stuff!
Did they forget to write a script? Chirag is back to 1,000% Indian. They cranked that slider up to 15. He carves a little statue about it. Rodrick makes that with a man. Oh, you thought I was kidding. Yeah, he's clearly breathing. He's screaming right now. I don't think he needs mouth to mouth. Okay, they did make the cranium shaker look fucking terrifying. This is like the roller coaster that euthanizes you.
Sweetie! Don't let me have that! Don't eat that!
The meat looks so unyielding. What is it made of? Do you guys think they're green screened into this car? The light's not even moving on his face.
I'm not gonna send you to Spag Union.
That pizza looks like shit. Sauce, toppings, and crust, all the same color. What can I say? I just love literature. I wanted to take a break from talking about the movies to talk quickly about the books and sort of where they ended up going. These ones down to this one is about where I stopped reading when I was a kid. These are all the ones I owned, and then I got these ones from the library. So I stopped after the third wheel. I read Hard Luck, which comes right after the third wheel, but I didn't buy it because I think that was kind of the year where I was like, do I really need to be purchasing another one of these every year? I was starting to feel the diminishing returns. So The Long Haul was the first book that I had not read yet, so I figured it would probably be a good idea to get that one and give it a read through. Essentially, it's just like the Heffleys go on a big 3-day road trip, and things get a little zany, okay? Honestly, it wasn't that bad, but the whole thing is just one long stream of consciousness narrative. I feel like the early books had more time jumps because they were structured more like diaries, so things would progress in kind of a more segmented way. Whereas in this book, it's just like one battle after another. Things just relentlessly keep happening to them for the entire thing. The whole thing takes place over like 3 days. This isn't necessarily worse than how the old ones used to be structured, but it does feel very different. I think the part that is absolutely worse is how over the top everything feels. Like, I feel like there were some zany coincidences in the first few books, but they were always like within the realm of possibility. In this book, the least likely thing always happens. It's just tonally very different from any other book I've read in this series. And I should be clear, there were still jokes that I laughed at. This book was still pretty funny. The Heffleys adopt a pig in this book because Manny just randomly guesses its weight at the county fair, which is part of their road trip, so their prize is they have to just adopt a baby pig now. And the mom is like, hey, actually, we're totally unequipped to do that, so we're actually not going to be accepting this prize. But they get like peer pressured into accepting a farm animal. Predictably, they have no fucking idea how to take care of a pig, so the pig ends up biting Greg and they have to take him to the vet because there's no doctor nearby where they are on this road trip, and his mom fills out the pet information form for Greg. We now know canonically that Greg is not neutered. I wanted to see where this series had gone since I stopped reading. My library didn't have all of them, so I just got some of the more recent ones, and then I just read the Wikipedia summaries for the ones I couldn't find. For the people out there around my age who probably stopped reading these books around the same time that I did, let me take you on a brief guided tour of where the rest of this series goes. After the long haul, we get old school. Greg's grandpa moves in with them, and Greg goes on a trip to what Wikipedia describes as an old-fashioned farm. I have no idea what that means. The 11th book is called Double Down because after publishing 10 of these books, Jeff Kinney was unsure whether it was time to end the series or keep going. And so this book reflects a renewed commitment to the series, by which I guess he more literally meant he was doubling down. Greg tries to make a movie. Also, they just own a pig now. That pig just lives with them in their house. I was kind of wondering what would become of it after the long haul. The Getaway. The Heffleys go on vacation in a foreign country, and at the end, they are wanted fugitives. Apparently, Manny releases a box jellyfish into the pool at the resort they're staying at, so I'm guessing they're wanted for octuple homicide. The Meltdown. Diary of a Wimpy Kid gets political. Climate change plays a large factor in this book, but the rest of it is about, war? According to Jeff Kinney, The Meltdown is a war book because it's about a snowball fight between two groups of kids. You know how war goes. Wrecking Ball. Not to be confused with Miley Cyrus's 2013 song Wrecking Ball. The Heffleys are trying to renovate their house so that they can move, but they end up destroying their house in the process. Now they are homeless, and Manny is forced to deal crack instead of smoking it. No, I'm just kidding. They live in their grandma's basement in book 15, The Deep End. The Heffleys take another vacation. They go camping again. They've been camping like 8 times in this series. Big shot. Greg Heffley is gonna play basketball? I was as shocked as you. Diaper Overload. I actually read this one because for an entire year I would see it whenever I walked past the book section at Meijer, and it would fill me with an unimaginable rage. So I had to read it. The entire book follows Loaded Diaper's efforts to make it big as a band. Greg is barely a character in this book. He becomes a roadie for Loaded Diaper and just follows them around the entire time. And it takes place from January to March. Has he stopped going to school? It's also just like not that funny. No brainer. Finally, he goes back to school. The middle school hires a new principal who introduces microtransactions to middle school. Greg goes to a different, worse middle school for a little bit because his school gets closed, but then it gets reopened, so it's fine. Hot Mess, I actually did read this one. The main plot point is that the Heffleys have another family reunion. Meatballs are central to the plot. I have to be honest, this one was actually pretty funny. Which brings us finally to Party Pooper, book number 20, which I also read. Greg's family forgets his birthday, so then he guilts them into helping him throw this giant party to maximize his gift intake. They introduce a Pokemon knockoff called Micro Creatures. Like there's even an app called Micro Creatures Seeker where you find them in real life. When did Pokemon Go come out? And this book was written a decade after that? Cool.
Way to stay topical, Jeff. Anyways, the Micro Creatures company misprints a three-eyed Feeble, which is worth like $100,000, so Greg structures his whole party around getting as many Micro Creatures packs as possible, and he actually does get the three-eyed Feeble, but before he can sell it, because of the Willy Wonka-esque cultural furor that the hunt for the three-eyed Feeble has caused, the company just prints a bunch more three-eyed Feebles, making Greg's worthless. Don't ask me how that business model works. Having journeyed through all these books, I have some observations. First of all, I kind of feel like after the third wheel, it was hard to find one that was legitimately enjoyable in the way that the first ones are. And yeah, I know exactly how this sounds. Oh, the last one that you read as a kid was good, and starting with the very next one, which you read as an adult, they're bad now? Gee, I wonder what could be going on here. Yes, obviously part of the issue is that I'm old now. These books are gonna hit different, as my grandkids are always saying. I think if I picked up any of the books written in the last 5 years, except I was 7 years old again, I would probably still get a laugh out of them. But hold on, I don't think that's the whole story. I think there are some quantifiable differences between the first books in the series and the latest ones. Structurally, these books have changed quite a bit. The ones I read as a kid, like I said, were structured a lot more like diaries. They span an entire school year, or at least large parts of one, and they mostly focus on Greg's misadventures as a relatively normal middle schooler. From the long haul and onward, the stories are much more condensed. They tend to be about one long, strange event, many times a wacky vacation of some sort. There is also a noticeable difference, I think, in how the background characters behave. I feel like in the early books, the characters he's interacting with are relatively normal people, but by the end, every single person in the book will always make the most chaotic decision possible. So to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, in the 20th book, while he's having his birthday party, there's a wedding going on up the street, and the wedding party steals the bounce house from Greg's birthday. Like, the groom comes over in the middle of his own wedding to bounce around on it, and then they just drag it away over to their wedding. I guess by the time you write 20 books, you kind of run out of ways to make normal life funny, but I think I did prefer it when the shenanigans were more grounded in reality. I think it was actually funnier somehow.
But to me, the most notable change as the series goes on is that everything seems to take longer. I feel like the later stories don't move with the briskness that the first few books do, and I feel like the bits tend to go on for a lot longer than they used to. Unlike the other differences I've pointed out, I felt like this one should be measurable.
So I pulled up an Excel spreadsheet, and I got to work. I picked 8 books from throughout the series for this experiment. The way this worked was I randomly sampled a page number, turned to that page, and then measured how many pages that bit goes on for. This is not an exact science since bits tend to bleed into each other in this series, but I tried to be as objective as possible. I took 5 random samples from each book and recorded the bit length and then plotted that data, and what you get looks like this. Honestly, not a very conclusive picture. All I was really able to take away from this data is that the variance in bit length seems to have gone up over time. Most of the early books tended to keep their bits short, and as the series goes on, it is more likely to run into a longer bit, but on average, the bit length hasn't gone up that much. I decided to try this experiment with a different, less subjective metric: day length. These books are diaries, and I wanted to see how much space each day takes up as the series goes on. Sampling in the same way, you get data that looks like this. For a simpler visual, I took the median day length from each book and plotted it, and that data looks like this. This isn't a tremendously scientific analysis, but my suspicion seems to have been correct. More stuff seems to happen on any given day as the series goes on. This metric is obviously not perfect. As you can see, the long haul is a pretty significant outlier because that story only takes place over a couple days, so each day is going to be more packed with things. If I had to bet, I would say that the books that take place during the summer probably have longer days than the ones that take place during the school year, but I do think on average the days are longer as the series goes on. The main thing I took away from this experiment was, I'm so glad that I'm married and no longer have to worry about dating, because this would be a fucking humiliating thing to have to explain to someone evaluating my potential as a life partner. So, what do you do for fun? Well, when I'm not watching 8 Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies in a week, I mostly spend my nights refining my statistical methods for evaluating the evolution of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid franchise. Hey, where'd you go? Also, a fun fact that I discovered while doing this experiment, every single book in this series is exactly 217 pages long. I can't imagine this is a coincidence. Kinda changes how I feel about this joke from the last straw. Yeah, I guess so, huh, Jeff? Maybe none of this needs an explanation any more than by the time you get 20 books into a series, you're going to have drastically departed from your starting point, but I have a theory. Jeff Kinney has put out a new Diary of a Wimpy Kid book every year since 2007. And while he was writing the later entries in the series, he was becoming more and more involved with the production of the movies. In the first couple movies, he's only credited for the book that the movie is based on, but then he wrote the screenplay for The Long Haul, and he's the screenwriter and producer of all the animated movies. Jeff Kinney has talked in interviews about the books becoming more cinematic, even describing the earlier books in the series as being sparse and minimalistic. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to think that as he got more and more used to writing these stories for the screen, it impacted how he was writing the books too. But all of these considerations pale in comparison to the most important question, which is, how old is Greg now? Is he still in middle school? I mean, the answer to the second question is absolutely yes. As late as book 18, the plot hinges on him still being in middle school. So how old is he now? Well, starting with the assumption that he was the normal age for a 6th grader at the beginning of the first book where he's entering middle school, we can assume that he was 11 years old at the beginning of Diary of a Wimpy Kid 1. We also know from Dog Days and Party Pooper and the other books set during the summer that his birthday is sometime during the summer months. I'm pretty sure it's in June. With that said, the first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book takes place from September to June, when Greg is 11 years old. By the time Rodrick Rules starts and he goes back to school in the fall, he must have turned 12. Dog Days is the next summer that we see with him, where he turns 13. He's 13 until sometime around the long haul, where he turns 14. The next June we see in Wrecking Ball, where he must turn 15, which means that by the time of book 20, Party Pooper, where he has his big birthday party, that is his 16th birthday. And this boy is still in middle school. Greg has been in middle school for 5 years. And that's not even considering the rest of his family. Rodrick was studying for the SATs in Rodrick Rules. It's been 4 years, Rodrick. I'm not saying you should go to college if that doesn't make sense for you, but like, you're 20 years old. If you keep this up, you're gonna be the first high schooler to have to get a prostate exam. And don't even get me started on Manny. This character is so much more terrifying when you realize that he is 8 now and still speaking in sentence fragments. He was only 5 when he sacrificed his entire family for food and warmth. I feel like by the time he hits 10, he's gonna blow up a nuclear reactor just so he can get his hands on the last crate of bitter apple spray. Time does not pass in the Wimpy Kid world. Impactful events can happen. They can have birthdays, anniversaries, last days of school, but it's all an illusion. They age silently, unknowingly, until Diary of a Wimpy Kid 466, where a 91-year-old Greg keels over in 8th grade Spanish from coronary artery disease. If I have to think about these books for one more second, my mind is going to snap.
So let's move on to our last movie of the day, The Long Haul. Probably most famous for the hashtag #NotMyRodrick meme, in which the internet mourned the loss of beloved sex symbol Rodrick from the other live-action movies.
If there's one thing I've learned from my years of being a kid,
Yeah, out of curiosity, how many years is that? So the plot of this movie is obviously very similar to the book, The Long Haul. They go on a cross-country road trip, but in this version, Greg and Rodrick want to go to the Players Expo, a gaming convention by gamers for gamers. There's sort of a Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie-esque figure called Mac Digby.
Today I'm playing Mushroom Makoto. This game's Japanese, mental, and yes, I'm a what mushroom in a kitchen? Boom, you got shroomed! That's how Digby do it!
And his catchphrase is, "That's how Digby do it."
that's how Digby do it. Classic.
Hashtag not my Rodrick? Yeah, hashtag not my anyone. They changed the entire cast, not just Rodrick. New Rodrick looks like a skeleton. New dad is always staring wide-eyed into the camera like he's about to get hit by a car. Alicia Silverstone is trying her best, but I don't know, Alicia, it's just not giving Susan. I'm sorry. I don't mean any disrespect here, but I'm scared of new Greg.
Aye, Captain. Without devices, there's absolutely nothing to do.
Look at the scenery. Read a book.
I love the way the dad is steering this car, just swerving around the road. They do play Pitbull though, so this is a good movie.
Yeah, I like this right here.
Estimated time on road, 47 hours.
47 hours? Where are they going? New York to LA is 41 hours. Did they have to dip into Mexico real quick to throw the feds off Manny's scent? Okay, so like in the book, the Heffleys encounter this family which Greg refers to as the Beardos, who are like this rude, cantankerous family that like follows them the entire time they're on this road trip. They meet the Beardos for the first time at this motel where Greg is like kind of antagonizing their kids, and then the dad comes out and starts antagonizing Greg. But then through some sort of a mix-up, Greg falls asleep in bed with the Beard family. How did he get into their room? They have to go to the county fair and it's super lame. And whoa, wait a second. Tell me more about Giant Rat. The Beardos find them at the county fair as well and start chasing Greg and his brothers around. It'd be fucking terrifying.
The piggy's better potty trained than you, Greg. Oh my God!
Does the pig have butt cheeks? How is it farting? Any scientists in the comments want to let me know? They don't even take Greg to the doctor in this version when he gets bit by the pig. They're just rolling the dice on the whole rabies thing. Tune in next time for Diary of a Wimpy Kid number 21. Whoa, hey, that's not water, is it? Followed by Diary of a Wimpy Kid number 22. Well, I've done it. I've spent an entire month thinking about nothing but these books and films. If you like watching me torture myself for your enjoyment, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. If you like this video and want to see more videos like it, I'm pretty sure I'm never gonna do another video like this, so sorry about that. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to go return some books to the library so I can never think about them again. Bye!